Hey guys, so this video is going to piggyback off of the last video that I made about how to prepare for a famine. This one is going to focus mostly on foraging. I'm going to briefly cover a few topics to help you be well-rounded during a famine. If you can't get groceries at the store, and if you haven't, if you weren't adequately prepared with your own supplies. So we're going to talk about foraging mostly just in the United States because that's where I'm at, and that's the area that I know about. So if you're from another country, this might um, relate to you as well. You might be able to get something out of this, but if you're not from the United States, it probably won't help you out too much. So first thing we're going to talk about is plants on the East Coast. Um, First and foremost, I would recommend that you purchase a Peterson's field guide to whatever location you're in. Peterson's field guide has hundreds of wild medicinal and edible plants in the books. It teaches you how to identify the plants, and it teaches you about the plants, what they're good for, and whether or not they're edible or poisonous and things like that. I'll leave a link in the description box below for Peterson's field guide, so you can look that up. So I'm just briefly going to go over some topics, and I'll leave a playlist at the end of this video that you can click on. It'll be in one of these corners up here, so you can get further information on that kind of stuff. So all right, without further ado, let's just get into the plants. Okay, so for the East Coast United States and not just East Coast, but I would say Midwest. Basically, let's just say east of the Mississippi. Um, the plants you want to start getting familiar with now are going to be the following plants, and write them down. If you don't write them down, I'll have them in the description box below. First and foremost, the oak tree. Okay, you want to learn how to get the acorns, how to get the tannins out of the acorns, and how to prepare them to be edible, because they have a lot of tannin in them. And just by themselves, you don't want to eat them by themselves. You want to make sure that um, you remove the tannin before you eat the acorns. All right. The next thing is the maple tree. All right, it's a good source of water if the water has been polluted, or if there's something wrong with your water source. You can tap the maple trees and you can get filtered water. It's basically done through osmosis, So it's going to be good, good. If the tree is alive, then it's most likely going to be good, safe to drink. So, and I've eaten the seeds from the maple trees quite often. So it's not something that can't be. Those seeds aren't something that can't be eaten. I don't know, I don't know many other people that have done it, but when I was in college, I used to go and collect those seeds, and I would salt them and roast them. And I thought they tasted pretty good, and I never had any problems with that. You also want to learn about cattails and how to prepare them. And they're everywhere east of the Mississippi, even west of the Mississippi. They're all over the place. Cattails are a big one. You want to familiarize yourself with the different types of chicory. The chicory is good for animal feed as well. If you're raising chickens, or if you're raising rabbits and chickens love it. You can dry the roots out, and you can add the dry roots and the leaves and the whole plant. Really, you can dry out the whole plant and save it for the winter, as feed for your chickens. You can mix it in with their feed, um, and the rabbits. They'll eat it. They love it. So just hang it upside down, dry it out, chop it up, pulverize it, put it in some 5-gallon buckets. Make sure there's good air circulation so it stays dry. You want to make sure you dry it real well. And they grow. That's another plant that even grows out in the desert. Certain types of chicory. So if you're raising chickens out in the desert, I would highly recommend that you familiarize yourself with the types of chicory, what they look like, because they don't all look exactly the same. Some of them have different color flowers, but they're all relatively similar. They're Dandelion is part of the chicory family. So, and that's another one, dandelion. You want to familiarize yourself with the dandelion, and you want to eat the leaves of the dandelion now. Get used to eating it, and then try the flowers. Eat the flowers from the dandelion and the roots. And I found that I could study about plants myself, and but as soon as I start trying them and eating them, I never forget about it after that. So don't just learn about the plants. Go out and find them. Go out and eat them. Go out and try them. Try them now, so that when the time comes that you actually need to rely on foraging, you've already been there. You've already done it. You know what's good. You know when to pick the leaves on the dandelion when they taste the best. You know when to get the tubers from the cattails, and you know how to cook them. What's the different ways to prepare them? What's your favorite way to prepare them? So you don't have to deal with all that stuff when it's too late. Some other things. Clovers. Go out and get yourself a big handful of clovers, wash them off, and taste them. You can also get what's called wood sorrel. It's got like a sweet, sour taste to it. It's good to add to salads because it gives it a nice flavor. You're not supposed to eat a whole bunch of wood sorrel, but a little bit of it's okay. Learn how to identify purple archangel. Learn how to identify purple archangel. It's part of the mint family. Grows all over the east of the Mississippi, and it's good. It's good for adding to salads and soups. You can give it to your animals. Chickens, rabbits will eat it. Learn how to identify plantain. Plantain is another good one. Let's see, what else is there? There's all kinds of berries that grow in the east, especially blackberries and raspberries. Don't be afraid of them. A lot of times people will mistake them as poison ivy, but once you learn the difference between the three leaves, it's easy. The poison ivy doesn't have thorns on it, okay? And they don't grow berries that look like raspberries. So familiarize yourself with raspberries and blackberries. And I think for the eastern United States, that's what I mentioned is probably the easiest ones for you to begin to identify and to get used to now. No matter where you are in the United States, you want to have some tool to be able to grind grass seed. Grass grows all over our country. Wild grasses, all the seeds are edible unless they have been contaminated with fungus. And so I'll leave a link in the description box of the type of coffee grinder, portable coffee grinder that I think you should get, and you should always have with you everywhere you go. Because if you have one of these coffee grinders and you can't get food at the grocery stores, all you got to do is just take your coffee grinder, go out and find some grass seeds, put them in the coffee grinder, grind them up, and make flour. And once you have the ability to do that, you've pretty much liberated yourself from the system. So it's very big empowerment once you start to make bread from the natural environment, and you have the ability to do that. You have no idea how big of a power play that is, because you won't have to rely on the system, on the markets, on the economy, on the dollar, on inflation. You don't have to worry about getting fired from your job. You don't have to worry about being homeless. If you have the ability to go get seeds off the grass and turn it into flour, and then turn that flour into bread, that's a big deal. That's a very big deal. You will never go hungry if you have the ability to do that. And then the most important thing on the east of the Mississippi, and really all across the United States, you need to know how to make pine needle tea for vitamin C. Because if you don't get vitamin C, you will get scurvy. You will get scurvy and it will kill you. So pine needle tea will prevent that. So you don't want to bring the pine needles up to a boil. You want to put them in hot water, and preferably, you leave the hot water on for a little while, but then you let it get cool or cold or whatever. You take it off the stove after a little while, and you put it away for a few weeks. You leave the pine needles in the water, and you put a bunch of pine needles in the water. All right, I mean, like, I'm talking about fistfuls of pine needles in the water. You let it sit somewhere in a dark place for a couple weeks, and the vitamin C will come out of the pine needles, and it'll get stronger and stronger the longer you let it sit there. You want to use distilled water, okay? Now we're going to talk about the desert areas of the United States. Desert areas of the United States, if you find yourself in the desert, there are some plants that you really need to make yourself aware of. First and foremost is the prickly pear cactus. You must be able. It's the easiest one to identify. It's the easiest one to find out there. It grows everywhere. It's prevalent. You need to be able to identify the prickly pear cactus, because it's the only one that has as much nutrition as it does, and as much water as it does. There's no other plant that is as bountiful in the desert as a prickly pear cactus. So go out, if you live in the desert, go out, get yourself a pad, learn how to peel the skin off, and learn how to put it over the fire and singe the needles so that they don't prick you. You got to learn how to harvest it. You got to learn how to prepare it, and then you got to try it. You got to eat it. Not just the fruit, not just the tuna apple, but also the pad. You got to learn how to eat the pad. And you also need to familiarize yourself with the mesquite tree, because the prickly pear cactus, even though it's got a lot of minerals and vitamins in it, doesn't have as much protein as the mesquite seed pods. The mesquite seed pods, they have a high amount of protein in it. That's why you always see the coyote poop out there with the mesquite seeds in it. The coyotes, if they can't catch a rabbit, they go and they eat the mesquite seeds, and you'll see their scat all over the place, and it always has mesquite seeds in it, because those seed pods have a lot of protein. And so you need to be aware of that as well. It's a high source of protein out there. The other thing you need to familiarize yourself with in the desert is let's see, Sotol. You need to familiarize yourself with Sotol. They have a lot of Sotols produce a lot of seeds that you can turn into bread. You can turn that into bread if you have one of those coffee grinders that I mentioned. And the Sotol also has this big, I don't know what you call it. It's not a tuber. It's tuber. It's like a big ball at the base of it where those palm leaves come out. You cut off those palm leaves, and if you pull those palm leaves off, you'll see a little piece of white at the bottom of those leaves. That's edible. It's got a lot of water in it. So you can eat that part of the leaf. It's the bottom part of the leaf that connects to the ball. It's like the base of the plant. And those little strips of white flesh are edible. And then if you take the ball at the base and you bake it, I think you got to bake it for a few hours. You can break up the material inside that thing to where it becomes digestible. But you have to bake that big Sotol ball up for a very long time to get it to be edible. And it's a major source of carbohydrates. So, just one of those will feed you for a week. And then, also make sure you familiarize yourself with the Yucca plant. And let's see, what else is there? There's also, like I said earlier, there's different types of chicory that grow all over the place. And find out where the grasses are. It's usually in places that the water runoff, where water runs off. That's usually where the grass is. You can go there and you can get seeds. You might be able to take those grass seeds and grow that grass in a greenhouse wherever if you have the ability to make a greenhouse. You can keep it moist, during a famine. You might be able to use your urine as fertilizer and try to keep the moisture in the soil and try to grow the grass. I find that carrots grow well out here in the desert, and so does broccoli. So those are some things you might want to look into. And there's other plants that grow well out in the desert. You should look those up. But those are just my suggestions for foraging in the United States. Wherever you find yourself in the United States, you need to familiarize yourself with those plants. It's critical. All right. Those are just what I think are the easiest plants to identify. Obviously, the easiest one everybody knows about is dandelion. Dandelion and clover grows everywhere. So does chicory. All right, chicory grows everywhere in the United States. If you can identify those plants and you know that you can turn grass seed into flour and into bread, you're going to be much better off than the majority of the people that find themselves in a famine in the United States. Same with pine needle tea. If you can do pine needle tea, if you can just identify those plants, no matter where you are in the United States, you've got a leg up over most people. The big ones are pine needle tea. It's critical to prevent scurvy. Pine needle tea, grasses, learn how to turn grass into bread, chicory, and dandelion. If you can, and clovers. If you can identify those, man, you're gonna be doing all right. So, thanks for watching this video. I'll leave some links in the description box below. If you're going to get one of those coffee grinders, I recommend you invest in a good one. The Japanese make really good ones. Mine has a steel burr. The ones with the ceramic burr are okay. There's nothing wrong with them. I just, ceramic tends to crack over time, so I prefer not to get ceramic. I want steel. And so there you go, guys. I hope you liked this video. Hope you got something out of it. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you for the next video. See ya.